welcome to our Web Development Turbo 360. In this series, we're going to go through a basic introduction to Node.js and ExpressJS. So this is a good starting point if you're looking to learn web development excuse me, using the Node and Express framework. My name is Dan. I'll be your instructor for this series, and thank you for watching. So first of all, what is Node.js and what is Express? So Node.js is a JavaScript-based runtime that it came out in 2009, and since then it's become very, very popular. Mostly it has been being used on the server side, what's often referred to as the backend, which has allowed developers to write backend code, server code, using JavaScript. Prior to that, that just wasn't done. So it's very popular because JavaScript is also heavily used on the front end, the client side, or your browser, typically. And so it has made it possible for developers to use a single language on the front and the back, making it easier to switch back and forth, which is amongst one of the many reasons why Node has become very popular. That's one of them, but there are of course others. Also, ExpressJS is called a web framework that makes it possible to create Node applications quickly and easily. So sometimes Node is referred to as a framework. It's not. Node is a runtime. It's an environment. And Express is a framework that is used on the Node runtime. And so a web framework is a tool that makes it easier to create projects by saving you the time from using duplicate code, creating duplicate code over and over and over again. So any good web framework abstracts away the repetitive code that you would have to write for every single project over and over and over again, thereby saving you a lot of time. There are a handful of popular web frameworks in the industry today. You've probably heard of a few of these, such as Ruby on Rails, Django, which is a Python-based framework, as well as Laravel, which is a PHP framework. And so Express is the Node framework, is the JavaScript framework for Node.js for web applications. So those four frameworks are extremely popular. There's also .NET, which is very, very popular. .NET's not a framework, excuse me, that's a runtime, but those environments are probably the five most popular in the industry, and any one of those would be a good thing to get into. So obviously we're going to focus on Node and Express. In this series, we will cover obviously the Node Express framework and all of its underlying pieces and concepts necessary to use the framework effectively. So templating engines is going to be in that list. We're going to use the Mustache templating engine, which is one of a handful of popular templating engines. A couple others might be what's called Pug, or used to be called Jade or Hogan. These are all pretty popular. Handlebars, these are all pretty popular templating engines, and they all kind of work the same way, and we will be using Mustache, which is also pretty popular. We'll be dealing with a lot of request routing, so any good web framework will handle request routing in an intuitive way. So we will be handling incoming requests to our websites and then configuring a proper response. There's also a concept called Next in the Node Express environment, and this is unique to Node. The concept of Next relates to what's called middleware, which we will get into as well. Frankly, it should be just another item on this list, and we will be exploring how to use middleware effectively, handling static assets, so things like how to store your CSS, your images, your PDF files, your movies, things of that sort, JavaScript, etc. We're going to be using some simple jQuery and AJAX requests on the front end. And finally, we will finish up with deployment. We will use a couple deployment options. Obviously, we'll be using Turbo, which is a deployment architecture, as well as Heroku, which are two popular deployment options, which are quick and easy, cheap, if not free, and very scalable. So those are two options we will be using, which are pretty well used in the industry. So this is a beginner tutorial, but that's not to say it's for complete beginners. If you have never ever coded before in your entire life, this is probably a bit too soon for this tutorial. You should go back and get familiar with the basics. In this case, that should be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You don't have to be an expert in these things, but you should at least understand what they are and how to use them. just again the simple basics. Get familiar with Bootstrap on a cursory level, and that could be just literally a couple hours of looking at the Bootstrap documentation or tutorials, and that's it. Make sure you understand what JSON is and how to read it and how to use it, and some basic programming concepts like variables and loops and arrays and things of that sort. I think a good rule of thumb is if you've been doing independent study for anywhere between 3 and 6 months, that should be a fair amount to get started on this tutorial. It might even be too much. So you don't have to be an expert by any means, but you shouldn't be a complete starting from zero beginner. This will be a little bit too soon for that. Okay, great. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is install some frameworks, some tools, excuse me, and yeah, get going on that. So open up your terminal. I'm using a Mac OS, so some of these commands are a little bit different depending on Mac and Windows. I'll try to remember which ones are different for Windows and point those out. I think I remember all of them, but I might leave one or two out. But if you're a Windows user, just understand that some of the commands are slightly different and you might have to Google your way around. So first thing we need to do is make sure you have Node.js installed on your machine. Nodejs.org, go here, and make sure you have download the LTS version. And don't download the current version yet. Sometimes there are experimental features in here which can get a little bit screwy. So you want to download the LTS version for now, and then run through the install packages. That should take about 2 minutes. And once you do that, let's check the version number. So you head over to your terminal and you do node-v, and it will give you the current version number installed on your machine. And obviously I'm one step behind, but it's not a big thing. It's pretty close. So the Node package also comes with something called the Node Package Manager, or NPM for short. And that should come installed with the Node installation as well. So what you want to do is check the version number there as well and make sure you have an NPM version. I guess I should get an update soon. And then you should be good to go once you've confirmed that both of these are properly installed on your hardware, on your computer. And then once you have that set to go, for now we should be good to go. So real quick, I'll explain. The NPM system is the major package manager for Node. And we use that to install packages, of course. Packages can be installed one of two ways. They can be installed locally or globally. So the difference is when you install a package globally, you're installing the package on your computer. It's kind of like installing regular software on your computer. So it goes onto your machine so that you can use it anywhere on your machine. When you install a package locally, you're installing that package inside of a project, a specific project, and it only works within that project, and that's called a local installation. We will be using both throughout this tutorial, so you'll have a good sense of when we're doing one versus the other, and when you need to use one versus the other. So for now, we're good to go in terms of what tools we need to get started, just Node and NPM, and that's it. Along the way, we'll be installing some more software as we need it, but for now, we should be good to go. In the next video, we're going to get started with creating a very, very basic Node Express project from scratch, from the bottom up, and so we can identify the pieces at the most simple level. So that's where we will begin this tutorial. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.